make it there and can make it back.
Salutations and shit folks, welcome back to another episode of your favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carey, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. And I am so very excited about this conversation. I don't know if, and now I'm talking directly to my guest here. I don't know if I've mentioned it to you, but I have been plotting on this episode for quite some time. Like, I have had in my head, like, damn, I want to ask her to be a guest. I don't know if she's going to say yes, though. How do I phrase it? And then it had to happen. And I am so happy that you agreed. So if you haven't picked up by now, to the listeners, there is a guest. As I like to housekeeping remind y'all, if you are unaware, the podcast is also available on the YouTubes so that you can see the gorgeous faces that are attached to these voices and this beautiful face joining me. If you would please introduce yourself.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me so much. It's a joy just to be here. I'm Shadonis, by the way. I'm an astrologer. I'm a producer. I'm an artist. I'm a jewelry designer. I'm a mom, traveler, all the things.
Happy Moms! Happy Mother's Day!
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I travel the world studying astrocartography, which is actually a sector under astrology. And it's the study of your birth chart in relation to the planet Earth. You know, I'll go deeper into it, but that's what I do. I share all these works and finds, and it's super exciting to share this information because travel is something that's been a part of my life. And I love to discuss how it's affected other people.
I'm so happy to have you here. So I am a bit of a woo-woo girl myself. I have, I won't say oddly enough, and funny you brought it up, D. So I have been but noticing, right? Mm-hmm. You know how we all go through different phases, different eras in life, and I've been consistently reminded that I am just in a much different phase of life. So many things have changed. I've always been more of a spiritual person versus a religious person. Grew up, went to Catholic schools my entire life, went to church every Sunday. Cool. Never really was my vibe. Shout out to those of y'all who it is. Love that for you guys.
Love it.
More of a spiritual kind of girl. So I have always kind of gravitated to, like, in my travels, like really enjoying places of worship, regardless of what denomination uses them. Churches, mosques, and all the different buildings in between are some of the most beautifully designed places. And throughout all the different countries, I have always felt that I have had some type of really kind of like, oh, this was nice type of experience. And it kind of had me thinking about how those different eras in life attach themselves differently to spirituality in different places in the world that I have personally experienced them. And I used to be more into the crystals and the rocks. And I still have a bunch of them. I've since rehomed a lot of them with my little baby Lou, who was also a guest. If I remember to do a little card on my link to my baby's episode, we had so much fun with I think she was 11 at the time. But I say all that to say, I enjoy the woo-woos. I enjoy the metaphysicals. I enjoy the things that exist outside of my small brain. There are so many larger than life areas of things to understand and to just kind of tap dance around. And astrology has always been one of those, oh, you're a Leo. I'm a Leo. And so I was very surprised to learn that that's just a very small portion of it, right? So I can't say that I am familiar enough with anything to speak on any of my other placements, because I know I am a Taurus moon. And for as much as I know about Taurus, I feel like that is very in alignment with me. And I want to say I'm like, so my sun is Leo, moon is Taurus, and the other one is what? Like, is that rising or ascendant, or is that your sun sign?
It gets that's the big three, the big triad of what everyone asks about. Yeah.
Okay, but, that one I think is Aquarius.
Okay.
And so I bring those things up because I have been spending, like I said, a lot of time in the different seasons, and I've been reflecting on those different seasons. And I'm wondering, how does astrology in general, or how do you use astrology to kind
Mhm.
of ruminate and sit with the different seasons that you go through in life, right? Let's just
Yeah,
start there.
absolutely. So, it's so cool that you even started the session off like this. This is literally how I start off my astro sessions, what I call them, when I discuss birth charts and findings and just astrocartography in general. And I love to ask everyone, what was your first encounter with astrology, just in general? What was your first, feeling of interest or spark of interest? It could be a childhood memory or just anything. And then I also ask, how do they apply it now, whatever information that they do have? Because astrology really is this insatiable journey. It's never ending. Whenever I talk to astrologers that are older than me, maybe have studied it longer than I've been alive, it's never something that you can kind of be like, oh, I got it. I'm an expert. No more
Okay.
teaching. There's so many ways to interpret it. It's something that we've, studied since the dawn of time, the sky above. So it really is the study of studying patterns and then associating those world events with those patterns. And then interpersonally, like with yourself, we have the history and the information from the patterns. And it's like, how does that apply to a specific individual? And then when it comes to like the actual locations on the planet Earth, when we're looking at a birth chart, we're normally looking at, again, where everything is positioned in the sky. But astrocartography is, okay, how does that apply to where the hell I am, which is on Earth? Like, how does this apply here? And so this is when we get into the four quadrants of the birth chart, which is the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven. That's the meat and potatoes of understanding, the main anchors of a chart. So although I think pop astrology gets into, the sun and the moon and the rising, we're expanding by just tapping into the moon and the rising these days. But I think, the way it kind of grabs people's attention is it's like, oh, wait, this is something familiar. This is something that might resonate. But how does it apply? Like, as you mentioned, as you grow in time, well, that's when you get into the position and the study of your own patterns and like, how is everything positioned in reference to that screenshot of the sky, which is the time that you were born. That's all we're comparing is time, and then how transits, how things are moving, right? So that study alone helps you kind of, again, notice patterns within your own life, notice patterns with where you come from, our parents. Believe it or not, like, our astrology, our charts tell us about our children. It tells us about our parents and how to understand these people that we are kind of growing and learning the world with. So then astrocartography, just to kind of segue into what that is, when we think about, how we naturally learn the world around us, whether it's, moving to a new city when we're kids because our parents, want to relocate, or we read a book of interest and it's located in a space where we're kind of like, wow, it feels very familiar. Or we're drawn to the music or the culture, the food, really anything, the people that we meet. It's really interesting how the world almost comes to us. So I love to reiterate, astrocartography is not just about picking up your bags and then just getting on a plane and going somewhere. We naturally, are in attunement with the planet. It's the place we live on. And there's a reason why different parts of the planet activate different parts of our chart. Some places may feel more centered. Some places we may feel more inspired, more connected to even the land. Some places are, a place where it's easy for us to interact with others, where we're drawn to other people. I work with many artists or people that have like businesses or some type of following. And also you can notice places that you're noticed, and whether it's for who you are, what you do. And it's really interesting, obviously, I'm sure you talk to people that do travel for a living or just have been in different places of the planet, and it's just aligning with different parts of themselves. And you ever travel somewhere, you feel like you took a piece of yourself back with you. And I always say, I think the common misconception of travel and wanderlust, if you call it, or even astrophotography, just in general, the study of this, it's not that we're running away from anything. I think traveling is the most uncomfortable thing you can do, actually. I think it's about centering through the unfamiliar is what travel kind of brings to the forefront. And it's a very intricate learning process when you're not in a familiar space. So no matter where you travel to, good or bad, you're going to be downloading some information. But astrocartography is helping understand and fine tune, what do I want to kind of like tap into more? Am I in a space of solitude where I want to work hard on something? Like, is it where a place where I want to feel, inspired or enough energy to get up every day and get something done that I need to use a lot of energy? People that are in the film world, I can't tell you how many times their energy filming, in different places affected them.
Yeah.
Where you have to have like long hours, and some places just are more resistant to that. Even when we get into water, and climate, all of that tunes into what, place we're in our lives. Older clients will tell me all the time, spent 5 years here, spent 10 years here, spent this time here, but all of those places were necessary at that specific time when I was raising my family, when I was building my business. So it's too about like tuning in, like, okay, what do I want to feel? Do I just need to escape? Do I need time to kind of like zone out? Do I need to focus? Do I need to, get something done? These are the things that I notice, when I travel myself with my own clients, and just naturally what we learn before we even learn about anything like astrocartography, what we notice when we travel, the different places that we go to. So I hope all of that, what I just said, comes to an answer. But yeah, I think that's how that's the general bias of like why it's or how it's tied to you personally.
Okay.
Your birth chart, exactly. And I love, disclaimer, I love that I do not have your chart at all. I have not seen it. We have not had a session. But if I were to show you your chart, obviously it would be a wheel, and then we can kind of dissect. This is what I do. I show people how different parts of the planet are activated depending on their chart. But it's an intricate process. And it's something you can kind of keep always, There's things we can do like relocative charts, which is what a lot of people are curious about as well. And that's also a program where you change your birthplace to the location in question. And you see how things move. Your planets will never move. The sign will never change that they're in. It's just the house will change when you do a relocative chart. So there's 12 houses in a wheel. I can go deeper into that too, obviously, but just to kind of, give a synopsis of what they are. It's kind of like a category of life. Okay. So you see in the relocative chart how long-term or progressed energy in that space or time and place will be for you, like how it'll affect you long-term. But your actual fact birth chart, like when you were born, where, like that's always your birth chart. But the relocative chart is that added layer of information that you do want to know if you are relocating, if you're going to be in this space for more than, a small amount of time. So they're very, very useful in that sense. I love relocative charts. Even for myself, I've noticed like, oh, wow, I saw that happen in the second year. This came up more when I was there longer, versus like a visit. You know what I mean? Versus like your actual natal, like tapping into the location. Yeah.
So if someone is looking at so assuming that listeners are probably as uninformed, or I won't say uninformed. Well, I can say uninformed, but I will say I have done my best to consume as much information about it as possible. It's just it's like running into poles up here it's walking out the room, and nothing is connecting for me. I start getting confused. So like, how similar or different or where do they connect in terms of astrocartography and let me ask that a different way, because I'm understanding that astrocartography is a subsection of astrology.
It is astrology. But it's,
so for us,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, also. So if someone has an understanding of astrology as sun signs, moon signs, this is where I was born in a calendar year, so I am this sign, right? I'm born between July and August, so I am a Leo. What, from that understanding, would someone's next foray be to understanding where they can pick up an astrocartography
And this is where we get into, and this is a lot into what astrology is, because it's something you have to kind of like study certain parts, certain practices, like even Vedic. I went into Vedic astrology about 4 years ago, just so many legs in understanding. Like this is one of the branches that you kind of have to study to know. And I hate that it's simplified. It can never just be like, oh, just your sun sign and just, it's a math, and it's really about understanding. Astrology in general is understanding patterns in math. So it's like, it's hard to simplify. Yeah. It's like,
you lost me at math.
I'm going to be honest with you. You know how patterns, like with math equations, like you kind of have to practice them until you get them. That's how astrology is, and studying it is. And let me be honest with you. I stumbled upon astrocartography about 6 years ago. I didn't offer it to my clients until 4 years ago. I started offering astrocartography in 2020 because I've been studying astrology. Just to do a quick intro about myself, I'm from New Orleans originally. And like anything spiritual has never been taboo to talk about. I come from a huge family full of women, spiritual women at that, very big personality. So it's like, it's always been in me to ask questions, and it's just literally become a language. I truly see all spiritual things as a language, and I try to tap into as much as I can and as much as, my mind lets me. But as far as astrology, I feel like it's just been in my life, just kind of like delving into it on and off over the years. But I think I even tweeted this today. Like, I never thought I could do it as a career or do it as a professional option until I didn't realize how valuable it was to other people. Because I would do it as a hobby. I'm like, oh, I'm just studying this. I'm a geek. I went through to science schools, and it was just something that came very, very natural to me. But I won't teach something unless I've done the work, unless I've studied it. And astrocartography, because it stumbled in my own lap, because of my own walk of just traveling. I lived back and forth growing up, and I traveled the world, and I continuously do for work. So it just was something I had to kind of formulate for my own before I offered it to clients. And the grateful thing that I'm just so grateful for now is that once I offered it to clients, my knowledge of it skyrocketed, because then I'm learning about all of these other patterns. I'm learning about diving into other charts. People who have traveled more than I have, or who've lived more, who've older, or whatever it is. And now we are here 4 years later. And that's what made me drop my ebook. I try to that's what I will say about my teaching style. I use a lot of metaphors, even in my sessions, I break it down. But there's no simple way to say, oh, just look at this. This is I got to show you, or just flat out tell you. And then we're looking at your chart, and I'm explaining why certain things are coming up in your chart, and why a certain location is going to pan out that way, or why a location that you're in is that way.
Are there different types of astrocartography, or is astrocart, it's just one?
So it uses Placidus, which is the calculation system. And the thing about astrocartography, because of the calculation, you can use Placidus for more than one kind, because we're talking about geography here, we're using cartography. So it's not about, I feel like there's so many branches of astrology to do in a map that's why Placidus works the best. It's the most flexible calculation wise. So yeah, it's different for each person, but your interpretation using different calculations can change. You could feel differently about Cancer energy depending on the practice. You could feel different about each zodiac depending on how you studied that practice or how you interpret it. And then,
so does astrocartography go by signs?
Well, the calculations are going by the planets, actually. So it's the planets, and then of course the angle of your chart. So that's why I was like, it's hard to count. It's it's so techie, and but it really is. It's the planet. When you look at the map and it's all these different lines, each colored line is representing a planet.
Okay.
And then what's associated with that planet is an angle.
Okay.
So there's 4 angles in the chart, and that's what's kind of painting the picture. You're noticing what lines are happening in different parts of the world. Okay. What angles of your chart are, emphasized in different parts of the world. And I would say if there was, which I put in my ebook, is the meat and potatoes, is analyzing the planets in your chart, knowing how they're aspected, knowing how they're positioned, and understanding the 4 main angles in your chart as well. The ascendant, which is one of the, one of the pieces of the main triad, which is sun, moon, and rising. It's the ascendant or the rising. And then we have that very bottom half of the chart, which is the IC, which is about foundation, where we come from. It's the fourth house. These are places that feel like very familiar. Have you ever been somewhere and you feel like, I feel like I've been here before?
Yeah.
I feel like, I feel like I could live here. I feel like I could, come back here. That's the IC energy.
Okay.
IC also represents, security and how we define security in our home life. How we build where we come from, and ancestry as well. Very grounded energy. And then the descendant, which is on the axis of the ascendant, still deals with other people. I like to compare the ascendant to our front lawn and the descendant to our backyard. Okay. It's like we can't judge, we can't control who's judging our front lawn, who's walking past our home.
I remember that.
It's like it's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? It's like, you're gonna judge me whether I'm home or not. But the backyard, it's like, if you're in the backyard, you invite us to the cookout. Like, we're in the patio, we're talking, we're drinking. Like, so the difference with those two energies, with the descendant, it's more so about, the seventh house, your contracts, your partnerships, which you're drawn to. And this is typically or places where we have descendant lines is typically where we're drawn to naturally, where it's very easy for us to connect with other people, where we're able to have a very high social life. The same with the ascendant. Only the ascendant is about, again, who's passing by, who's wanting to be acquainted with you, who wants to know who you are, what you do. A lot of interactions with either axis, but the difference is how you feel about both. Okay. So that's what's common with, like, when people are like, oh my God, I go there, I feel like I can't hide. Like, I'm always in, it's always somebody to meet. It's always something to do. Typically that's ascendant and descendant lines. So that's where it can get a little easy. Like, hey, do you want a more social experience? Do you want to go somewhere where you're going to have like a lot of encounters? Let's look at your descendant lines. Let's look at your ascendant. And then the last but not least, the MC, which is that very top half of the chart, which is where the 10th house begins. And this on TikTok gets a lot of popularity because MC, we think about our career. We think about what we want, what we're thriving for, the legacy, our reputation, what we want in the long run. And it's about just like what we want written on our tombstone even. And I find that with the MC, even in ancient times, we define what a career would be. It's truly what you're deciding to give to the world. It's like your stage. It's like, okay.
I like that so much better.
Yeah, it's like, how am I going to bow out? Like, how do I want them to remember me when the curtains, close? It's like that. And so I think with MC, what I've seen with both ends of the spectrum is that, yeah, you do have this, boost of energy and you feel inspired to kind of complete something. It can be a lot of focus on your work or what you're doing or thriving to complete. But I've also seen heavy emphasis of that same subject as well, like where people are almost burned out, like, hey, I feel like I'm really burned out on my MC line, or I'm doing a lot, like I have a lot of plates, to feed, or a lot of things to do, and I want to kind of retreat a little bit. So that's what I've noticed with the MC, and I talk about that heavily because I know it's kind of like pushed a lot along with like Venus and Jupiter lines. But that's when we get into the planetary positions, because every planet, just because it's a more positive seen planet, it doesn't mean that it's where you should go. You want to look at where Jupiter is in your chart, how it's aspected. And that's getting an accurate, interpretation of your astrocartography. I would never just kind of say, yeah, it's easy. Just look at this, and then, you got it. But it's really cool to kind of even tap in before traveling to a place and like checking off where you've had, or if you just measure where you've kind of been always drawn to. What languages have you wanted to learn? What people have you met so far? What kind of foods do you like? And how have you kind of like related to anything outside of where you are? And lastly, when we introed, and I mentioned the ninth house of me with the background painting. Okay. Ninth house energy is before the 10th house, of course. The ninth house is about long distance travel, different cultures. It's the house of expansion of the mind. It's about, educating yourself and just really just going outside of the box. It's a very spiritual house, I think, because it's when you're able to pour out information and just pour it back in. It's like you're in love with that process. And travel, especially long distance travel, sits beautifully in the ninth house. So most times when people have ninth house placements, they're drawn to things like travel because you understand what travel is doing for you spiritually. You understand what it's doing for you mentally. You're gaining knowledge. You know, you're learning a different experience. Ninth house is all about experience. So that is what I mean by when you look at a house and you see on that line, that planet is in your house and you're on that line. That's how you know, you're like, oh, okay, I see why I expand here. I see why, you know, this energy here is always like me elevating my mind in some kind of way, or I can see myself taking a class here, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it becomes the pattern. And that's where you start to see like, oh, this is how it works.
Okay. Like, I feel like I got the keys out. You know how you put your hand in your bag and you're looking for your keys? I'm not in the house yet.
Yes.
But I found my keys, right? Okay.
Right.
So how would someone, without having to without having to technically be well versed in it, how would someone use astrocartography to decide maybe where should my next vacation be, or where should we honeymoon, or you know, I had an episode where you have the ability, but a lot of people actually travel for fertility. People travel for just having children abroad, just because I don't trust my country to take care of me. Why not go someplace where I can spend the same amount or even less and have a much better birthing experience? Like, how would someone, or how can someone, without having to dive into really, you know, knowing all my houses and what aligns, and how do we use astrocartography to make certain life decisions?
I could say, you know, working with mothers who have booked me to do that. It's literally an emotional space. I feel that with astrocartography, the way you can understand how to use it for something as intimate as that is knowing your intimate spaces. I like to call them the sweet spots. There are certain locations that you are just really spiritually inclined. You know, you're in tune, you feel still, you feel grounded, you feel like calm. Oftentimes it's associated with your moon. It's associated with even, it definitely depends. I don't want to just throw out a random planet because it really depends on how the planet's aspected. But it is those nurturing qualities, like something that's targeting someone's, again, fourth house, their IC. Something that's targeting something very intimate, like their moon placement. And of course, how it's positioned. But either way, places that are associated with that calm is typically where mothers want to be. They want to feel like very, very like just centered.
All is right.
That's where I usually kind of gear toward, places that they'll feel that. And I also always say, like, include the climate, include like things that you want to be around. If that's water, if that's whatever that is, and we can still curtail that to finding a place that's still in alignment that has that scenery. So I think for that is definitely a calming like energy that you want to tap into. But if there was something, like I said, for career, you do want to look to MC energy. You do want to kind of look at, you know, where is your sun placements? Like how the work that you do, you want to look at how all of that stuff is aspected too. It does get detailed, but there are certain commonalities with certain vacation spots. Like, hey, I want to have fun, or hey, I want to chill. Those are very easy energies to kind of like find. And I always say like that, the house system isn't hard to like define. You can just Google like, okay, I see my sun is in this house. Let's see what it means. You know?
Oh, so that's how. So what is a house, and then how is it factor in relation to the planets for someone?
So when you're looking at a birth chart, it's divided into just to say like, okay, hey, if I showed you a map of your birth chart, not to get all spacey and technical, you would see a circle, and you would see it divided into 12 triangles, and each triangle 30 degrees. Those different houses, or they equal the different categories of life, if you will. Okay. So each house, like the first house, like self, and the body, like I said, like the front lawn, there's like little metaphors you can use for it to kind of just see like the surface of like what people are observing.
Okay.
Then you get into the second, then the third, and the fourth. And it's literally everything you can think of in life. There's a house for it, right?
Oh, so the houses are the life categories.
Mm-hmm. They're those categories of life, if you will.
And so will you have something in every house?
No. And if you don't, it's still okay, because you can observe the zodiac sign, or you can observe, asteroids. If you don't have that, if you have 0, nothing in a house, you can still observe the energy of the sign. So let's say, like, if your your 4th house had nothing in it, but it was in Taurus, and then you think of like all the things Taurus represents. Like right now we're in Taurus season, so we think of stability, we think of time, like slowing down times, savoring moments, and Taurus is about preservation, and also Taurus is about just appreciating what it takes. Taurus is about what we can really turn into, like the material, if you will. It's a very substantial energy. It's an earth sign, of course. So you think about the 4th house, and you think about how that also kind of ties to foundation and substantiability and just things that ground us.
Okay.
You would definitely kind of think like, okay, well, this person's home life or their upbringing had to have like this huge tie to sustainability, this huge tie, maybe a hardworking environment, or maybe now their home has to be extremely comfortable where they can just kind of like forget time exists. Like those are the things you kind of think of when you tie a house to the energy of the sign.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you have a planet in there, then you add in the element of that planet. So if you then throw Jupiter in there, the biggest planet in the solar system, then you're magnetizing that 4th house energy in Taurus. Then the other layer is how Jupiter is aspected if it's in that house. So maybe it's squaring the sun, your identity. Maybe it's squaring your Mars, how you take action. So you didn't want to be home a lot. That's how we get into breaking down the chart as an astrologer and like piecing the pieces together.
So without using, say, like a full-on astrocartography map, having some type of understanding on your personality and your zodiac, and like if you have like a little bit of an understanding, what types of decisions would you say in terms of short-term and then versus long-term decisions would you make in travel? Like, for example, if you can just say, I am a Gemini and I know what kind of things are important to me. Should I use that in deciding different factors as it pertains to where I'm going? Like, should you use your zodiac or the planets, or if you're looking for something, like should those things like it's really confused. It's like it's in my head, but I'm trying to get it out so that the question is exactly what is in my head, and I want to ask it without saying a bunch of words that don't mean anything.
I think what I like to start off with, just to kind of like make it more comfortable, is undress yourself of the planets. Just take them all off, right?
Okay.
You're the soul. It's you. Nothing else, right? And now you're about to put on an outfit. First you get the sun. The sun is not like none of the planets are you per se. It's like, it's understanding, how am I wearing this energy? So you pick up the sun, you're like, my sun is in Gemini. So this part of me, my ego, what's fact about me, like no one ever looks up at the sun and it's like, oh my God, what is that thing? I don't know. It's up every day. Who knows? No, we're all very like, it's very evident what it does and we need it to live. So the sun represents in our chart, and when we wear it, what is undeniable about you? What is something that, is proof, is fact, that cannot be hidden, that is, undeniably, evident about you? And that is how we get familiar with, and if it's in Gemini, we kind of look at the attributes of Gemini, but it's like, what a part all that list is me, that part of my identity. That's the sun energy. Then we pick up another planet, and then it keeps going and going and going, because each planet represents different parts of the psyche and different parts of connection. And it's that's why I say astrology is a language, it's an art, technology, because it's like understanding the pattern of time with philosophy to kind of break it down and understand it. And then as time progresses, it's like, we need to share this information. How do we make it relatable?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with all information as time kind of progresses. How do we make it digestible, edible, and easy to kind of comprehend? And so I even think of like metaphors in that way, because we can get so wrapped in, I'm this thing. Like, no, your sun is that. Your sun is in that sign. That's not, that's just your embodiment, because that's the energy you came into on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
But it can get woo-woo. It can get real, it's not, it's just a woo-woo topic.
How have you seen your travels change from before you
Mm-hmm.
tapped into astrocartography to the after?
It's funny, and it's crazy too, because I love witnessing you. Did you mention, I meant to ask, did you mention you were a mother?
Oh no, I gotta go.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
was like, wait, I didn't tell her.
I've been
But tapping into my son's chart as well has been very interesting, because knowing how it affected me growing up before I even knew it was so great, because now I can have that perspective, and I'm like, oh my God. And that's what happens usually even in my sessions too with other people. Like, now I know why this place was that.
Mm-hmm.
But going forward, once I knew, I was like, oh my God, like I knew I wanted to, let me actually talk about this a lot on my Patreon. When I knew I wanted to do astrology professionally, I was like, how do I even market? Like, what do I do? I was like, what the hell? Like, where do I go? What do I do? I knew I was going to do like Twitter and talk about things, but I really had no idea. And then astrocartography, I credit so much to it, because Chicago came up. I actually flew to Chicago. I had this idea of knowing that my son was in the 10th house. The 10th house, like I said, is like your stage, and my son is there. So it's very hard to, ignore being seen, or ignore having, a reputation, or ignore building business, things like that, all of what the 10th house represents. So I knew when I did this photo shoot, to start my website, to start having bookings, to just opening the door for this new, field. I knew I needed to soak up as much sun energy as I could. I specifically planned a trip to Chicago. It's dead heart straight in the middle of my Sun MC line. Planned an entire photo shoot, explored the city, just journal, just really just soaked it up. So many things happened on the trip. Funny enough, this is crazy when I think back to it. It literally gives me chills. The day I got there, it was the second night. I want to say it was the first or second night I got there. I get a call from one of my friends. She's like, hey. And at the time, I think the app was like 2 days old. It was Clubhouse. She's like, hey, the app was literally 2 days old. She's like, you should get on Clubhouse. Like, we're all like, it just started. It's just like, you have to be invited. Like, I'll invite you. Get on there on my Sun MC line. Like, that's when that happened. Connected with some videographers out there at the same time too. It's really interesting. Just a lot of visuals played out. Community, just like connecting, launching my site. It was just, all of this was happening while I was like familiarizing myself with Chicago. And when I left, it trickled. Everything that happened after that trickled. And I kept revisiting that because I work in film as well. Went back there the first time my name was on a screen, was working in Chicago, was in the Chicago Film Fest. Then I went back there again because my second collection, I designed my jewelry line. I was trying to work with just different jewelers with the material I'm wanting to use for my North Node earrings. Chicago. And I knew each time it was going to save me. And I was like, if I didn't know this information, I wonder what I would have done. Or I wonder how it would have played out. But even knowingly, I just know it's one of those places. And it's not just Chicago. Like, that line goes through not far from where I'm born, not far from where I was just the last week in Cancun. The Sun MC line has just been there. I talk about it a lot because it changed my life, literally. And then previously, I changed the entire trajectory of my life. And the reason I even study astrocartography is because of the North Node MC line, which is a very like popular line when it comes to spiritual awakening. I see a lot of times, I've read over so many charts, it's ridiculous. But I'm telling you, 99.9%, anytime people have had some type of experience where the entire perspective shifted about something. They became very clear about something, whether it was like career or a person or something they're doing, they're working on. It was associated with the North Node lines. And it's insane. I spent a month on mine. And when I came back from it, I moved across the country. I quit my job, moved across the country.
Wow.
It was that insane. And I was like, this is so, mind you, 2 years later, I find out I start studying astrocartography and I'm mind blown. And then I find out, like, you know, after doing sessions over and over, I'm like, this is crazy that this keeps happening with every person. Like, what is it about this line? And yeah, it's crazy. So
that makes your Chicago is making me think of Cartagena. Like, I feel like I manifested the most beautiful experience. Like, I just knew when I got there, I wanted to connect. I wanted to link with creatives. Like, I had this whole like dream experience in my head. But when I tell you I didn't do a single thing to make it happen, it was just a little feeling like, oh, it would be so nice. I would love to, and this and that. And I ended up just going out, minding my business, and everything just fell into place. I ended up doing like an impromptu photo shoot. I was standing there minding my business, taking a selfie in front of
what line
like
was
a
it?
Church. I was in Cartagena. I have no idea what line that is for me.
Oh, I can't.
Now I looked, because you know I'm booking a session, so
yes,
we'll see. And like I looked to see if, because I think I remember you. I think I retweeted something of yours, and I think about that what reminded me of my Cartagena experience. And then you had said something, and I don't remember what it was, but
I think it's real.
I ended up connecting with this girl. She was just, her friend came up to me and was just like, yeah, my friend wants to take your picture. And I'm just like, fuck, you know, told me I'll take a picture. Like, like, and I was so like apprehensive at first, but then like she pulled out a whole like DSLR, and then she just had like such a warm smile. And I was just like, all right, sure. And then it was just like, we had the best freaking time. And then she was like, she had this whole vision. He had to translate everything for us. And she ended up working with this restaurant that she had done a shoot in prior. She was like, you're going to look perfect here. And then we go inside, and she takes the most beautiful fucking pictures of me.
Oh my God.
And to this date, that has been one of, I personally think, some of the best photos that I have taken. Like, I feel like I look the most, and I just spent the entire day at the beach. So when I tell you, I was like washed, no makeup, like nothing. It was just me. Like, I've done photo shoots where they do the makeup and you got your fresh haircut and you got like the look, the outfit. I had on a throw over, like, you know, like a little Zara dress just to go over the bathing suit, and just, I felt so beautiful, and I felt so like seen, just like a middle of being a nobody. And for someone to see you, and all of the people that I had like booked different excursions with, like throughout the time that I was there, everybody was mad chill, mad warm. I was able to connect with them like outside of just doing like the excursion, just like, oh, yo, pull up. My cousin owns this restaurant. Let's just go eat or whatever. The best fucking time. Yeah. And so I feel like there is so much credence to this if you know what it is you're looking for. And sometimes when you don't know what you're looking for, and I think what's been really beautiful about this episode is that out of so many little confusing word flows, you have made such clarity in certain little pockets. Like, it's not like the whole world of astrology has been open for me, but like I said, I found my keys. Like, you've made certain little things make so much more sense. And this is one of the reasons why I say travel is so much more than vacation, because I think that even if it's not, and that's what another reason why I fucking love this podcast is that it doesn't have to be specifically about a trip to be about travel. Like, travel opens so many little doors, and I always encourage people to follow your curiosities, whether that means actively going someplace to see what that looks like for you, or whether or not that means like just looking something up, Googling something, or whatever it is. You go someplace, you experience something, you see or hear something, and it's like, you can come home and look it up, or you can just say, you know what? I remember something like that. There's got to be a reason for it. My grandma used to always tell me, you don't have to do what I'm telling you. You don't just listen to what I'm saying. because at some
Exactly.
point the information might be useful for you. And it didn't. It was like, yeah, girl, whatever at 16. But then, like, the older I got, it just started making so much more sense. And so,
Right.
my next question for you is, you said that you travel a lot for work in terms of astrocartography. What does that look like? Like, do you travel like for yourself just to experience different places on your line? Or do you actively like have a plan? Is there something more intentional about it? What is that?
No, I do intentionally travel for my lines, like for leisure. But I know I
Okay.
actually do travel for a living as well. I'm a flight attendant. I've been a flight attendant for 5 years, and so
I love running into y'all
yeah.
in the wild, man. Y'all are some of the most interesting people. I have a special love for you. My mama used to be a flight attendant before I
Oh,
was
no
born. So,
way.
uh-huh.
Yes, but way before I was a flight attendant, I also traveled a lot because my parents traveled so much. I went to over 13 schools growing up.
Oh,
So
wow.
I literally have always been in a different place. That's why when people are like, "Oh, you're from New Orleans," I don't hear an accent. I'm like, if I get mad, it'll come out. But it's between my parents giving me speech therapy because they didn't want me to have a thick accent, and then traveling just all over. It just, I feel like sometimes it wasn't a nomadic energy because I mean, I had
Okay.
a place to lay my head, but we just shifted our home so often. And then once my parents divorced, my parents separated.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in two different places at once. And I
Okay.
love meeting other people who did that too, because I specifically noticed how it developed who I am. Because I was literally living at two places in once in my entire life. It's crazy.
I have heard that
Yeah.
before, people that have
And
lived in different places.
yeah, and to even your note about just, it's not so much about travel that you can just tap in. I feel like it's a spiritual sense. Like any way to elevate the mind, we can do that by tapping into something that we don't know, something that
Yes.
we can feel like is kind of calling us even. I feel like we literally are there's different parts and pieces of ourselves everywhere that we are supposed to discover. And it doesn't have to be a plane that takes us to get there. I
No.
always say my favorite quote is like, I've traveled all over the world, but the farthest I've ever gone is within. Because that is it's so true. And I think if anything, the answers come from in many, many forms. So way before you go to a place can come to you.
Yeah.
And I love to reiterate that because it happens so often. I've seen it come up in so many people's lives.
Is it possible, or is there a way to, I guess, not really decide, but maybe places to avoid? Like, because so
Yeah.
far it's been like, oh, this is for this, or this can be for
Mm-hmm.
this, or this may be more prevalent here.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite to that, like there's more possibly negative here, or this may bring more stress in this location. So perhaps barrier yourself with whatever.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I
It's
mean? Like,
kind
are
of
there?
just really just knowing what you're going to be dealing with. Like, I'll never say, hey, don't ever go here.
Yeah.
It's like, what? This is, go wherever you'd like. But what I will say is some places, and this comes up a lot with couple readings or people that travel with other people, they want to know where they like just mesh better with others. Because
Okay.
I've noticed a lot of friction and confusion comes in certain locations when people are somewhere where they should be in a more private space and they're with a lot of people, or vice versa.
Okay.
A lot of times too, what I've noticed is that some places are more accident prone for whatever reason. Things are just moving very fast paced. So it's less in alignment to do something like chaotic, like don't go bungee jumping or just don't do anything too adventurous on a line that might be harshly aspecting your Mars. Those types of things come up a lot too. And then also, because solitude is such a big thing, it's a real reason people travel to grieve. People travel to, just spiritually retreat. If you do go places that you're supposed to retreat and, you're in a social environment where people are like, hey, come out. You're supposed to be out. You're supposed to be partying. I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it firsthand. Some places are genuinely not for you to like just be around tons of people partying or doing any of that stuff. And I feel like when you feel that, you're naturally in tune with your body, like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm not supposed to be doing the most out here. So I'm supposed to be like chilling. Yeah, you know what I mean? So people who travel, they know that, that place, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because some places are meant to just retreat.
So, what, pray tell, may happen, or is there a way to?
Hmm.
What happens when you find yourself in a location and
Hmm.
you're getting that feeling that you're not really sure what the energy is? Is there a
Hmm.
way to use your chart or astrocartography, like your astrology or astrocartography, in a
Hmm.
fashion to kind of shift what your experience in a
And
place
kind
might
of
be?
use what you're working with. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I've actually noticed this with people that are pursuing like a degree or they're having to work and focus
Hmm.
and spend a
Hmm.
lot of time just kind of working hard on something. I've noticed that some places might highlight, hey, you might work better if you're in a group. Hey, you might work better if you are um, if you're given the opportunity to speak about it more, to kind of interact as you're speaking about it. And that's how you're going to learn. I've seen it work
Mm.
where people, it's like the type of schooling, the location, it depends on like the type of schooling that they're in. Like if it's for cooking versus if it's like for law or something like that. Like certain
Hmm.
places are just better for them to be in that type of space, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Um, I've also seen it with different artists, like if they are recording or if they're painting, having to tap into kind of like the more creative space. You want to
Hmm.
look at maybe their Neptune placement or their fifth house and see how anything might be aspecting
Hmm.
their placements, if they have any in the fifth house or anything aspecting their Neptune. Things like that come up that just have a better creative flow. You're able to kind of just tune in and just let loose, let more things happen. I think, what else have I seen it come up with? Like I said, some places are just high strong energy versus just chill.
Yeah.
So you can learn like, okay, if this is high strung, then I know like I'm gonna need this to kind of get me in that space. I'm gonna need
Hmm.
this to kind of motivate me, because, or if I know this place is super chill, I need to amp up the vibe. Like I'm gonna, tap into something that makes me kind of like wake up more, do more. Maybe I need to like um, run more here, even
Okay.
though it's not in alignment. I know this place makes me a little sleepy. I
Hmm.
know this place makes me need more rest. But it's, again, knowledge is power. And knowing that certain energies, it's kind of easier to kind of be more in alignment with it. But
Hmm.
if you know, hey, this is just a space I'm in when I'm here,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, what? Because I'm seeing the uh, what does jewelry help us accentuate? I know you've got a
Oh my
shop.
God.
And so, how can we kind of play on those energies? Like, what does the jewelry do? How do we use the jewelry to, is it to magnify certain energies? Do we change different, like, what, I guess, planets would
Mm-hmm.
we focus on? Like, if we wanted to buy a piece of jewelry for ourselves, if we wanted to buy a piece of
Uh-huh.
jewelry for someone else, like, how do we decide, like, what to get? What are we focusing on? What is it for? Like, what can it be used for?
Gotcha. My intention with my jewelry line and just entire shop really is to inspire people to just delve deeper. I wanted to kind of just do more than the sun sign, more than the
Hmm.
zodiacs, and just really just invite people to do that deep dive and just not make it intimidating. Make it fun, make it like, exciting to kind of just, it's not work. I didn't want them to feel like, because I've noticed most of the response, like, well, you got to look up this. And they're like, but I'm like, no, now it's tons of apps. Put that birth info in, get your info,
Hmm.
understand your placements, because it's powerful. It helps you understand how to tap into different energies in your life. When you need to hone in on things. And ancient times, we always do like glyphs, what they're called, the symbols.
Yes.
They held power because it's the hand, it's the mind, that's the connection. We create our own symbols. I
Oh.
always say, like, make your own symbols. If you are, when you write words, like all of that that's why words are power. It's literally using your mind, connecting to the physical, creating something, real. So it's like that connection alone, just with symbols and symbolism, has always been just a subconscious part of manifestation, of tapping in with different energies. And so the planet symbols, I feel, stand for, of course, what the planets represent, but if you know where they're positioned in your chart, you can utilize that
Oh.
intentionally. So knowing, hey, I want to tap more into loving on myself. I want to give myself more time. I want to like just care for me a little bit more. we're going to look at Venus. We're going to think about all the things that Venus represents, not just the fluffy things, but just kind of like going to war for yourself, to take care of self. Like that's what Venus really represents. And so tapping into that energy where it's wearing Venus, it also represents the womb. It originates from the Ankh symbol, the Venus symbol. So the life. And so creation. And I think Venus represents just tapping into that femininity of just like creating. So I was like, I have guys that buy Venus. Like, it's not just, just for women. I think Venetian energy is boundless. So yeah, just loving self and loving on yourself. Mars taking action is obviously usually associated with like the male energy, but I think it really is about conquering, taking energy, like just taking charge, getting things done. And so I've seen people say, I work out with my Mars necklace, or like put it on my ankles to run.
Oh, okay,
like
cute. That. I'm seeing the vision here. I'm seeing
like people who are in film photography, like wearing Neptune or like the sun. It's so funny. I designed the sun years ago, and I didn't wear it off because they sold so fast. I wasn't even wearing some of them, especially like the more popular symbols. So the sun, now that I'm like overly stocked, I can finally wear like as often as I'd like the symbol. So the sun is just a reminder to shine. The symbol of vitality. It's the symbol of, again, what's evident, what's fact. And just standing up for yourself, just being you. And I just feel like, I don't know, it's just so many messages in that.
Okay.
And,
so
you can relate to each planet.
So it's not necessarily
just one zodiac sign.
where they fall for you per se. It's more embodying what you want that to represent for you in terms of how you
I see it as both. I see it as both, like especially with the Venus symbol, but just also having that knowledge of knowing where your planets are. Like, you know what? Like, I want to just tap into my creativity. I have hella fifth house placements. I'm wearing all the planets in my fifth house today. It's like that intentionality. And I always say jewelry is just spiritual in a sense, because you can program it. You can program anything you have. Literally, it could be a piece of silk I put in my wallet to attract wealth. It's like, I genuinely believe in blessing your things that you adorn your body with and putting intention into them. And so regardless of even what my note card says, just inputting your own intention is truly my own intention for my customers and for anybody that connects with the jewelry.
What about, I've seen people with like numbers, like 4s and 2s. What does that represent?
Numerology. I think with anything, numbers, frequency, like it's all related. It's all math. All of these ancient sciences are connected. And numbers is the same thing. You see patterns. You see certain things kind of like show up and they mean different things. Each number carries a different frequency and a different meaning. So wearing them, whether it's from, you notice you see it a lot, or maybe like to wear your birth date, each number means something different. And I'm bringing, it's so funny you mentioned, because I'm bringing numbers to my site soon. Yeah. So it's the planet symbols are the custom. So it's like, I pushed that the first 3 launches. So now I'm feeling more comfortable doing like outside things, because I've been killing myself doing all the custom. But I'm noticing it's so much more than that I want to put on the shop.
Do you do handmade jewelry? Do you make the jewelry yourself?
The symbols are handmade by me, but I actually do wholesale as well, as far as like but the chains are made by me, and the planet symbols. But now I'm like incorporating just high quality like other charms now.
Okay,
like, there's one that says 1111, and there's like little stars that I'm kind of adding, like little pieces.
What's like the time 1111, right? Okay,
it's like it's a crescent moon, and then it has 1111 in the center.
And I was just about to ask you about the moon. What does the moon represent? When I tell you, I absolutely I love the moon. Everything about the moon. I am a moon girl. I am so drawn to the moon, and I've always been drawn to the moon. What does the moon represent?
That. I love to say that if the sun, is about what's undeniable about who we are. I feel the moon is about what's undeniable about how we feel. And it's about how we emotionally process, everything around us and within us. I feel the moon shows us cycles. It shows us, even when we, on Earth, we're witnessing how it affects the tides. It affects like the women, the flow. It affects just our mind and our emotion. And there's a reason why we get into brain chemistry and it directly affects the emotion. Because there's an intricate spiritual process, I think, that happens between the mind, brain, emotion, like all of that stuff. It's like it's all creating the inner world.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel the moon and its cycles definitely affect us here on the planet. We're 70% water, and if if it's controlling the water on the planet, I think it definitely has a pull on us. So I think do you know your human design? I don't know if you're tapping into that, but they talk about just certain types that I know reflectors like are highly tied to the moon cycles and stuff like that.
I don't know if I'm correct. I don't know if it's the same system, but I know we did something. I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but I'm like a supporter. I'm like I'm the
projector.
I guess I'm the person. Generator. No. Okay. So I don't think it's this, because it's like, damn. And I'm
I know I'm so spacey with it too. Honestly, I don't know it much, but I try to dive into it a little.
Yeah. Cause I ended up doing it was a larger group of us, and they gave us the little quizzes, and then they broke us up into these little groups. Cause I did momentum. And so that was one of the things that we did. And promoter, that's what it is. I think out of those categories, something about being a promoter, I go hard for other people. That's my jam. Projector. It sounds like it might be, because it's all about you good. I'm the facilitator.
You guys have all the ideas. You guys have cool, ideas, suggestions for sure. But did they speak on you having to be invited or something like that?
I don't know, because funny you should say that, because I don't do third-party invites. If you don't directly invite me, you didn't want me there, so I won't be there. You understand? If somebody says something like, oh, so-and-so's having a party, have fun. So-and-so ain't tell me about the party, so I wasn't invited. So I don't now that I'm older, I don't feel a way about it, but I used to feel a way about it. But even conversations, I was one of those weird kids that would just sit and play by myself, because I want to interrupt your conversation. If you wanted me to talk with you, then you would include me in your conversation. Right. I was always told that when you interject, that's rude. So for me, and then also I was kind of a loner kid anyway. I would just sit by myself a lot, just because I'm I don't even know if y'all want to talk to me, so I ain't gonna get my feelings hurt. I'm gonna just sit here and read my little book.
Same. I was always
I live in my fucking head, so it's I can entertain myself. So I don't know how those things fall together and stack up, but
I can't wait to see your chart.
I can't wait to have you explain it either.
I feel like we're gonna unpack quite a bit, but it's super cool to kind of even just now seeing the background and now going to your chart. I'm literally so excited to see it.
So how can we support you? How can the people find you? How do we learn more? How do we book a reading with you? What does a reading look like with you? What can someone expect?
Yeah, so I have two versions. I have my phone call reading. It's definitely just straight to the point for people who kind of just want a cute scale of what I've kind of noticed in their chart, but also with their maps. I only do astrocartography as the initial reading, but if people decide to come back, I definitely specialize in other forms of chart readings, like solar return. I'll do transits. I can do electional. It's just different things that I can do once I know your chart.
Okay.
So that's why I always say I offer it after. And then I have the longer version, which is an hour. I always say it's a classroom setting. It's a video, and then we have your chart up, we have your maps up, and we're doing a deep dive. We're going straight in, and it's recorded, and you're able to kind of have a transcribed note to the side of just everything we talked about. It's really, really cool. You can kind of take the information forever, and you can ask any questions you have. I make it super easy. Shadonis is my name, so it's shadonis.com. You literally find everything there. If you want to book a reading, if you want to support and buy jewelry, or just apparel. I have so many things coming out. I'm super, super excited. Yes, the ebook is on the site. It was a starter. I wrote it, just fun fact, I wrote it literally on my way to Japan. It took 14 hours. I think I started like 2 weeks prior, just kind of like dotting around it because I knew I wanted to write something, but it literally poured out of me on the plane. And I just can't wait to just add so much information. I'm doing a lot of like trips and like intentional like vacations and intentional trips to kind of just tap more into it. On lines that are assistive to me doing so. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun stuff coming. I just added a new page to my site highlighting other creatives, which I'm super excited about because I have so many sessions with so many cool, dope people all around the world. I have a client in every continent. And it's just super cool to kind of like share just, what everybody's doing. So that's the site.
And I am looking forward to it. I am so thanks y'all for joining me, yada yada yada, because I'm going to book mine. I am so curious about so many things, and I feel like it is not going to like answer all my questions, but I feel like it'll also very much so inform different things. And similar to what I was saying about what my grandma told me before, it doesn't necessarily all have to make sense at one time, but you have the information. And at some point, if at any point something starts to just kind of scratch at your little brain, it scratches at you behind your ear, you can roll it back. Tap into that, follow those curiosities. Like, I cannot express that enough, especially at these bigger ages. Like, as kids, we kind of we ain't had shit else to do. So, not everybody, God willing, you had the kind of childhood where you had nothing to do but to be a kid. Unfortunately, not everybody has that. But I'm hoping that for the vast majority of us, we have had the opportunity to just be kids and kind of lean into, oh, well, let's color this, or well, let's make this, or I just want to sit and play with this. As adults with responsibilities, I find that sometimes we get lost in what has to be done as opposed to what wants to be done. And I feel that travel being more than just, I would like to rest or I want to visit here. People travel, like you said earlier, people travel to grieve. People travel for medical purposes. You travel for familial issues. All the little things in between. And having these little pieces of information, however you understand them, you can grow into more information and more understanding. And you never know where in the world you will find the answer, the key. Once you find it in your bags, then you're going to find the lock. So Shadonis, thank you so much for joining me. I am so looking forward to our conversation about my reading so that I can have some more informed pieces. And I'll definitely have your website linked in the description box. So please, if you guys are interested, check Shadonis out. Absolutely get the ebook. Because if anything else, because what actually would you recommend, like a site for someone to do like their birth chart or their astrocartography chart? Because there's a million different websites that'll do it for you. And one thing I was finding with the astrocartography chart, they were asking a lot of questions, some of them, and I was like, you don't need to know. Delete. Won't be filling this one out. And so I found one that just basically asked for my birthday, where I was born. Like, where would you suggest somebody can kind of go to get a little bit of an understanding so that they can then do more research?
Absolutely. Astro.com is like my go-to. I think it's just aesthetically pleasing to look at. It's very beginner free and it's easy to kind of like interpret. And I think too, it's easy to navigate because once your birth date is in the system for Astro.com, you just literally go to all their different functionalities. Astro Travel is one of them. So it's astrocartography or locational astrology. So once your birth chart's in there, you can then go and you can input other charts. And if you want to search your relocative chart, I use AstroSeek. There's different programs too you can buy, but I'm really big about aesthetics and how it looks so I can show people, and it kind of just, because it can look very like 1980 techie, nerdy. You know what I mean?
A lot of it does. And I am very much so a pretty girl. I want to see pretty things.
Exactly. But no, it was just such a pleasure. I'm so happy that you invited me here. I'm just so grateful to share this information. It's super exciting. And like you said, like I like to call them nuggets. You know, you can continuously go on to your path and just use the nuggets that you have and just keep hearing it together. And then also it's not just about again, that picking up the bag and going. Cook the food, you know, play the music in your kitchen, you know, like tap in so many ways. You can travel by watching a YouTuber, you know, vlog the experience. I always say tap in, go to the Airbnb, look at the locations, look at how people are living. Like, so many ways to tap into a different place and the artistry and everything. You never know what would inspire you, you know, in your own life.
That is the perfect
Right.
segue to our end. Thank you guys so much for listening. See y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.